The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance, presented by our sponsor, Heffernan. We're so happy you can join us. My name is Deb Beto, and I will be your moderator today and be monitoring questions you may have during the session. Before we open up the session, let's review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discuss can be found at the URL currently showing on your screen. I will be sharing this website in a follow-up email, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and logging back in. We do not control the audio. Your devices control the audio. So if you have audio difficulties, try adjusting the volume settings on your device. If a telephone line goes dead during the call, hang up and call back again to the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Please feel free to ask questions or provide feedback by using the chat box or questions box during the webinar. If you are using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear, and then you can select the appropriate option. We may not respond immediately, but we will try to work your questions or feedback into the presentation. If we can't get to your comment or question during the session, we will be online afterwards to respond, or we may follow up in an email if we run completely out of time. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrmg.com for up to 48 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are very much encouraged, and the presenter will be answering questions at the end. And lastly, we have a number of webinars upcoming covering a variety of topics, including those listed at the Heffernan webinar website. In addition, we offer the mandatory preventing harassment training in English 3 times a year. With that, let's begin today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance. Dr. Steve Albrecht is one of the country's leading experts on workplace violence prevention. In 1994, he co-wrote Ticking Bombs, one of the first books on this subject. Since then, he has continued to write, speak, and train on workplace and school violence, the value of threat assessment teams, and safety and security of all employees. His background includes 15 years with the San Diego Police Department. He holds a doctorate in business administration, an MA in security management, a BS in psychology, and a BA in English. He is board certified in HR, security management, employee coaching, and threat management. He has written 23 books on business, security, and law enforcement subjects. Welcome, Steve. We're looking forward to your presentation today.
Thanks, Deb, and thanks to the good people at Aspen Risk Management Group, and to Steve Thompson, and to Phaedra, and of course to you, Deb. Thanks for your time and attention, everybody. A quick 1 hour on stress management. It is a lot for me to presume that I know about keeping the stress out of your life, but I've got some tools for your personal and professional skill development, tools that you can put to use right away, including an acronym called BREADS, which will remind you of the things that we talked about. So if you take nothing from the slides because you weren't taking notes, that's fine. Just remember the acronym BREADS, and we'll talk about what that is and how it's useful for you for this issue. So Deb, I think we have some polling questions to begin.
We do. So our first poll, the coronavirus issue has caused conflict between employees on how and when to return to the workplace. Is that true or false for your organization? And I'd like to answer a couple of questions. We will be recording this webinar, and you can request a copy of the recording after the webinar today. All right. So we are at about 60% of the people. I like to see that about 70 to 80% have voted so that we can make sure that we've got everybody participating. And right now we have 72% say true and 28% say false. And I will go to the next poll. Good stress is known as eustress, and bad stress is known as distress. Is that true or false? All right, I'm getting good. Getting some good voting here. Again, I like to see like at least 70%. I'm figuring that maybe 20% of you are sharing computers. We like to see that people are being engaged, and we have 61% say true and 39% say false. And we have just 2 more polls, so bear with us here while you continue to answer these questions. Our next question, a leading cause of job burnout is getting too much praise from your boss or coworkers. Is that true or false? We're getting a lot of really fast responses now. A leading cause of job burnout is getting too much praise from your boss or coworkers. We have 8% of say true and 92% say false. Good number of people saying false.
I'm going to talk to
our
the 8% that get scored true there. We'll have to have a separate conversation with those folks.
Yeah. Our last question. Sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, breath control, and a positive attitude are all connected to managing your stress level. True or false? All right, we have 98% say true and 2% say false. So we've got a good varied audience today.
Thanks, Deb, for the poll questions. Let's go over a couple of those. The first one, obviously the coronavirus in the work from home environment versus the people are still at the office. We've got people coming back environment where they still may be worried about corona. There's some concerns about who's got the vaccine and who is not, who still wants to wear masks and who doesn't. Certainly a stressor. So I've been talking a little patience, a little empathy, some guidelines, some the process of getting people back to full productivity and full connectedness to each other is going to take some time. The second one, EU stress is good stress. Bad stress. So whenever we talk about eustress, that's typically positive stress, a birthday party for you, distress, and nobody shows up at your birthday party. The third one is kind of a gag just to see if we're paying attention, but praise is a big driver of workplace performance, of morale, of productivity, of longevity, of people wanting to stay in retention in the organization as opposed to leaving. When I talk to supervisors about how much praise they have given their employees, they say, oh, I give them lots of praise. I tell these people all the time what a great job they're doing. And then when I speak to the employees, sometimes they say, nah, I hardly ever hear it at all. Sometimes my boss says, well, you didn't screw up nearly as much as you usually do. So if you're a supervisor, a manager, and you are looking at ways to readjust your own approach to how you supervise people, think about the praise volume knob. Can you turn this up a little bit, add more praise to the things that people do, catch them doing the right activities, doing the right things in their work day? Big improvement. I'm also a fan of Bob Nelson. Bob Nelson writes books about praise and rewards, and his kind of Bible Belt book is 1,001 Ways to Reward Your Employees. I think he wrote that book back in the 90s, and it sold, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 million copies. And it's a very powerful book for how we catch people in how we reward them in the workplace for the work that they're doing. And the last one, we're looking at a collection of activities: breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep, all things connected to stress management and stress control are part of this BREADS acronym, which I'm going to be talking with you about today. So we look at our time, we know that under stress we forget things, and this situation, speaking of masks, we've been dealing with masks for the last almost 2 years now. If we look at the mask business here, these people in the Southwest Airlines flight are having an in-flight emergency. There's actually a woman who has been killed on the flight when the engine exploded and a piece of shrapnel went through the window where she was sitting on the wing and struck and killed her. This is the plane heading down towards a safer altitude to deal with the emergency. Everybody's got their mask on wrong. People under stress go back to how they have been trained. In my workplace violence programs, I talk a lot about the need for the run, hide, fight protocol, and how you, in the rare possibility if that ever happened in your facility, you would run out of the building, you would hide out in the safest spot in the building, and you would fight back if you had to. So when we look at stress in our lives, it makes the easy things in our lives difficult because we can't think and function accurately when our brains are under stress. I'm reminded of a friend of mine whose mother-in-law had a serious health issue. He went over to her house with his wife, and they were trying to help her, and she was needing a paramedic, and he could not, even though he'd been to the house many, many, many times, he could not remember her address. He had to actually go outside and stand and look at the address on her mailbox before he could call the paramedics, because he had simply forgot under stress what her address was. And this is a guy that's been to the house hundreds of times. When you think about stress in your life, it makes it easy for you to forget your car keys and your cell phone and things that are important in your business or your personal life, because the stress just becomes an overload. And there's a phrase that clinicians use all the time called allostatic load. Allostatic load is your bucket is too full. Many of us these days have a pretty full bucket. Personal issues, professional issues. We'll talk about both of these, especially some of the resources that you can get access to in your professional life and in your personal life as well. Some of them may be on your phone. Some of them could be through your employee assistance program if you have that function and feature as part of your employee benefits. We'll talk about some of those. So under stress, we go back to how we have been trained. That's why training under really severe circumstances like giving CPR or operating an AED machine or even a fire extinguisher, we need to practice those things so folks remember what to do under stress. When you're on the airplane, put the mask over your nose and mouth. This is called a fractal. There were some studies done in Germany that suggest that fractals, which occur naturally in nature, fractals would be, for example, would be snowflakes are fractals. We can see fractal patterns in leaves and things like that. Many beautiful things in nature are fractal patterns, spider webs. We can also see created versions like this. There are computer programs and screensavers for you and things that you can put on your phone that create fractals. A German study suggested that looking at fractals for some span of time, in let's say 10, 15 minutes, actually lowers your blood pressure, lowers your pulse rate, and allows you to relax. Think of the things that you can put into your life that don't involve drugs or alcohol or caffeine or fats or chocolate or sugar that are a little bit healthier in terms of your stress level. This includes pets. This includes exercise. We'll be talking about some of these things as we go forward. So Siddhartha, the father of Indian Buddhism, said back in his day, let us be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us be thankful. I like a little sarcasm in my Buddhists. I think he's being a little tongue-in-cheek here, but thank you for your time and attention today. Let's figure out what we can learn together. Take what you need from our conversation, especially the part about the BREADS acronym, which we'll get to and hopefully is memorable for you. This is a Japanese garden. There are many like this. You have seen these. They have koi fish, and they have beautiful water and moving water, and they have fountains and lighting and really attractive trees, and there's a lot of oxygen here. And so think about how we gravitate as human beings towards beautiful things like this. We want to be out in nature if we can. We want to be alone sometimes or with somebody we care about out in nature, and how that does a lot for us in the stress management environment. I'm reminded of cops. In California, where I was a cop, we had one lineup at the beginning of the shift that happened either at 6 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night. And this is where the sergeant would speak to us about what we needed to go do and crooks to look for and things to watch out for and projects to work on. And then we would go out into the field, and then we would come back in dribs and drabs over the span of the end of the shift, and then we would see each other the following day. In Japan, they do 2 police lineups. They do one at the beginning of the shift, and they do one at the end of the shift. The beginning one is the usual police conversations. Here's what to go do and what to look for, etc. The second one is a return back to the station to say, how did it go out there? What did you experience? Did everything go okay? And most of the time the answer is yes, things were fine. But occasionally there was a traffic accident or a fatality or a death or something that was pretty severe or a crime to deal with. And that's where these folks would talk about it before they went home. Think of the value that this had on first responders. This is why firefighters have a healthier lifestyle, a healthier, longer career than cops, because they debrief, they exercise, they talk about things in groups. They don't go home and ruminate, and they don't use alcohol near as much as cops do. So think about how in your world environment, how can you make a place for yourself to de-stress? Maybe it's in your car driving home. If you have a long commute, sometimes that's a benefit. You listen to some pleasant music, you don't have to look at your phone, you can unwind before you get to the house. When you think about your breaks and your lunches and the things that you can do to manage your time, it's your own time and during the workday, where can you go? Even sitting in your car sometimes with the air conditioning on and a cold drink and just closing your eyes for a couple of minutes to think about positive things and work on your breathing, which we'll talk about, can be very stress relieving. Think about where you can go with your dog or your family or a coworker, where you get some exposure to nature and you feel refreshed before you get back into the workday, before you go home, or immediately after you get home. So look at a couple things that we hear from our clinician friends. Successful people, says Dr. Brian Allman, that's A-L-M like Mary, A-N like Nancy. Brian is a psychologist in Carlsbad, California, just outside San Diego. I think it's Brian Allman or drbrianallman.com. Brian's got a number of videos on YouTube where he's at the beach and he's talking about stress management. And I've worked with him and trained with him, and he's really a special guy. One of the things he says is successful people have one foot in the present and the other foot in the future. And he says miserable people tend to have one foot in the present and the other foot stuck way in the past. Think about the people in your life, could be family members, coworkers, friends, people that are kind of miserable, that they tend to be ruminated, stuck in the past, as opposed to positive people around your life tend to have one foot in the present, the other focused on the future. Not that we can't learn from the past, but certainly being stuck in the past is oftentimes creates misery in our lives. Think about how your orientation is towards where your feet are, one in the present, one in the future, or one in the present, one stuck in the past. We see a lot of talk these days about pleasure versus happiness. Happiness is maybe something that you want to acquire long-term. Pleasure may be something that you get that's short-lived. You buy a car, you eat some delicious food, you hang out with some people. That may be very short-lived. But happiness is something that we're aiming for our lives throughout a span of time, which we say we tend to live longer, we tend to have less stress-related diseases. Think of all the stress-related diseases that exist in our world these days: heart attack, hypertension, blood pressure issues, obesity, diabetes, things related to cancers and things related to autoimmune disorders that people tend to have. It's not that you can will these things upon yourself, but we look at a positive orientation, a stress management orientation in life as a way to help ward off some of these things. And there's plenty of research, especially done in the University of Massachusetts and Harvard and places like that, when we look at the value of mindfulness meditation as a way to lower blood pressure, lower your metabolic rate, lower your pulse rate, get you back into a breathing modality, which is healthier. We'll talk about some of these things. Third one, a big piece for me in stress management is positive self-talk. If we look at or we listen to all the voices that you hear in the day, if you look at all the people around you that are chattering at you all the time, the one voice you listen to the most, obviously, is your own. And so when you say stuff like, I'm stupid, I'm worthless, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'll never amount to anything, I'm not going to succeed in this project, those things can become self-fulfilling. I've lived a long and complicated life, and I've had a number of issues happen to me, and I'm not one of these guys that sees a big pile of horse manure and digs through it looking for a pony, but I am a strong believer in positive self-talk, and I'll give you an example. Many times people in job situations where they're looking for a promotion and they pass the early part of the promotion process and have to go to a panel interview. They have to go to an oral interview with a group of people, could be peers, could be bosses, could be people from other organizations or other agencies. The positive self-talk, that person will say, I've got this. My resume is solid, my education, my certifications, my job knowledge for this new job is substantial. I'm going to be able to learn and grow into this position. I'm going to ace this interview and do really well. Negative self-talk is, God, I hope I don't screw this up. I hope I don't say something stupid. I hope I don't forget what I'm supposed to say. Well, you can guess the results before we even have the interview. The people that have positive self-talk, much more likely to get the job than those who don't. Can you will bad things upon yourself? You can. Think about the best athletes that we know. You would never hear Tiger Woods say, geez, I hope I don't shank one off into the woods. I hope I don't mishit it and hit it into the water. Michael Jordan would never say, I hope they don't pass me the ball because I don't want to shoot it at the end of the game. I don't want that pressure on my shoulders. Those folks never say that stuff. What they say is, I want the ball. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do this perfectly just like I practiced for. Fourth one, daily breath-based relaxation practice is really becoming part of our discussion for total employee wellness, total personal wellness, where you take about 10 minutes in your day in a safe, quiet place just to sit and close your eyes. And you're not sleeping, you're just simply counting your breaths, or you're listening to some positive, pleasant music on your phone, or you're listening to a guided meditation on your phone for just 10 minutes. And here's why. All my IT friends, everybody that works in IT that I've ever known, all my computer engineering friends all say the same thing when I ask them, hey, how do I fix this problem with my gizmos here? My phone, my tablet, my laptop, my PC. They always say the same thing, don't they? And they say it to you as well. Reboot, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on again. Daily breath-based relaxation, breathing, focusing on your breathing is a reboot. It shuts down your systems into this, what do we call the alpha state, half awake, half asleep, sort of there but not there, feeling like everything is starting to relax for just that short span of time. And then you pop out of that, you go back to full concentration, full alert, and you feel like you are re-energized. And if you don't believe it, start practicing it. And what you will discover is you will get a sense of wanting to do this more than 10 minutes. I've been doing this for 30 years. I try to do it 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening if I can, or a half hour during the whole day if I can. Sometimes when I'm doing client stuff, I'll do it in the car at lunchtime, or I'll find a quiet, safe place where I can just close my eyes and meditate in my office or somebody else's office. It makes a huge difference in the quality of my life and the quality of my health. Are you doing what you really want to do in your life? And that's a question that comes from, you know, everybody's favorite motivational speaker, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins says, and I agree with him here, whatever you want to do is what you're doing. I talk to people all the time who say, you know, Steve, I should get back to going back to college. I should finish up my degree. And I say, that's great. When are you going to start? And they go, probably first of the year. And then I talk to people that say, you know, Steve, I should really get back to the gym. I've been thinking about it. You know, I have health issues. I got to get my weight down. And I said, that's terrific. When are you going to start? And they go, well, probably right after Christmas, right? First of December, right after Thanksgiving, I'm going to roll right into the gym. What Robbins says is, and you know this to be true yourself, is what you want to do is what you're actually doing. So if you want to do something that's connected to your career, certification, education, interview practice, something like that, trying to get a promotion, that's what you're going to put your energies towards. If you say, I'm going to go home and ride my mountain bike, and you go home and ride your mountain bike, that's what you want to do. But we talk to lots of people in our lives who say, I'm going to get around to some of these things, especially when it relates to their health, their stress, and they don't really want to do it until they get to that allostatic load issue where their bucket is too full. Last one, can small changes make a big difference? We know that they can. Scott Adams, who does the Dilbert cartoons, has written a number of books, and his last book, I think it's called Win Bigly, something like that, talks about not goal setting, but systems that we work on. Don't set up a goal, set up a system. A system says every morning when I get up and put my feet down on the bed, I'll see my gym clothes, my shorts, my running shoes, my socks, my walking shoes, whatever they are, my t-shirt, I'll put those on and I'll go exercise. That's a system. A goal is I need to lose 10 pounds. A system says when I come in the morning, I've laid out the food I'm going to eat for that morning, or I've laid out the food I'm going to eat that day, and I have it packaged and I can take it to work. Those are systems. Think about those small changes make a big difference. So stress is a stimulus. It's an everyday fact of life, and it's also something that keeps us alive. Too much of it is unhealthy, but we need stress as a biological organism to survive. And one of the reasons we've proven that is we look at many years ago, I think this is probably back in the 90s, there was a biosphere that was created somewhere in Arizona, I think it was Tucson. And they put these bionauts, you know, men and women in this biosphere, and they had plants and trees and a river and fish and birds and all kinds of cool stuff. And they were supposed to live in this environment. What they found out was that the trees started to die. And they would put new trees in there, and the trees started to die. And they're like, what's going on? The oxygen is perfect. The climate is perfect. The food we give the trees is good. We get good soil, et cetera, et cetera. Why are the trees dying? And the answer is there was no wind inside the biosphere. Trees need stress. Trees need to deepen their roots. They need the wind to provide some resistance to deepen their roots. No resistance in there, no wind, trees died. So stress is not a good thing for us or a bad thing. It is a fact of life. And we need some stress as a stimulus for us, or life is boring, but too much is not good for us. So it's all about balance. And what stresses you may not stress me. I stand in front of total strangers and talk. I've talked in front of 5,000 people before, and I've talked in front of 6 people before. It doesn't stress me. Some people listening to me might say, oh my God, I could not stand in front of 25 of my peers and give a talk for 2 hours. I couldn't do it. Some of you like horror movies, and some of you like scary roller coasters. I don't like either of those things. And you could ride those things all day or go to those movies all day. So it's different for everybody. Stress is usually a result of a comfort zone shift, oftentimes to the negative, sometimes to the positive as well. Retirement and the birth of a child and getting married, those are all positive and negative stressors in terms of the emotionality. But think of the things that are mostly positive in your life that are shifting in a good way, comfort zone wise, versus those things that are a negative shift in comfort zone. Negative stress is distress. Positive stress is eustress. If you ever hear those phrases, that's what we're talking about. So stress is a biological reaction. There's chemicals in your body like adrenaline and cortisol. People that have a pot belly oftentimes have a stressful job. We look at people that have a lot of cortisol that is being consumed in their bodies. It's squirted into the stomach as an adrenal function. It creates pot bellies. That's not always connected to bad eating, but just sometimes the fact that you have a stressful job. It really relates to your cognitive function. I do an exercise when I teach stress management as a live program where I ask people to make a list of body parts they can spell with 3 letters: lip, ear, hip, toe, stuff like that, right? And I give them a 1-minute time limit, and I talk about the exercise, and I yak, yak, yak all during the exercise. They can't get it done. If I was to give them all the time they needed to spell out body parts that could be spelled with 4 letters, like knee and things like that, they could get it with no problem. They can get a list of 10 with no problem. But under stress, it really affects how we think. And the last one, it is connected, stress, obviously, to feelings. Anger is probably a biggest driver. Anger turned outward is not good for your health and your career and your personal life. And anger turned inward is a leading cause of depression. So think about where you feel stress yourself personally. For me, it's in my neck. I've had a bunch of car accidents and sports injuries and things. My neck seems to be a centerpiece for it. My low back, same thing. Some of us, stomach issues, diarrhea, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, teeth. If you've got some crowns like me, you're either a gritter or a grinder. You either grit your teeth and clench your jaw, which can give you TMJ, or you grind your teeth, which can cause you to have crowns. So I've had a number of really cool mouth guards made, which I take out of my mouth as I fall asleep and drop on the ground to give my dogs something to eat. Headaches, muscle aches, energy levels, a big one, and also your interactions with people can be stressful, especially those of you like me who can be introverted. I'm an introvert trapped in an extrovert's profession. Those of you that are extroverts tend to get a lot of energy off of people. Introverts, not so much. It can be tiring to interact with people, bosses, coworkers, clients, customers, vendors, your kids, your spouse, your partner, your relatives, etc. And it can be draining sometimes in those situations. And you go, why am I tired? I didn't do anything all day except sit at my desk and interact with people all the time. It can be stressful. So this is the magic chair. Many people go home and sit in the magic chair, men and women. They go home and sit in the magic chair and they say, leave me alone, and I'm going to watch TV in the magic chair until it's time to go to bed, or it's time to eat, or I'll eat in front of the magic chair, sitting in the magic chair. The magic chair, let me tell you, is a divorce maker. The magic chair is not good for your children to see you sitting in the magic chair, because inside the magic chair, we check out. We say stuff like, I'm busy, I'm tired, let me just sit there, I had a hard day, I don't want to walk the dog, I don't want to go help you with the food, just leave me alone, right? If you say that enough, people will leave you in the magic chair and change houses. So I've talked to lots of people I know who had stressful jobs, and they came home and they did too much sitting in the magic chair. When your kids or your spouse or partner says, hey, let's go walk the dog, your answer should be, yeah, let's do that. I'm tired, but I'll feel a little bit energized. It'll get us ready for dinner. Let's go do that. Sitting in the magic chair for too long, just watching TV all the time is not good for your personal health, not good for your relationships. Think about how much time people spend sitting in the magic chair. And even if it's not watching TV, if you're sitting in the magic chair messing with your phone or your tablet all night, same thing. Look at the professional stress makers we have at work, our workload, our work schedules, the transition from work from home after the pandemic to back in with our coworkers and clients, interactions with customers and taxpayers and visitors and vendors, any kind of harassing environment that we have or bullying. We can feel sometimes demotivated or burnt out at work. It depends on how our job is, especially if you have a transactional job where you do a lot of the same things over and over and over again. We tend to make poor decisions. In a stressful environment, we make rash decisions, or we make snap decisions. We can work in a toxic environment, physically toxic, which is your exposure to noise and chemicals and dust and things like that is not great, but also a toxic environment around people that don't treat you with respect or dignity. The last one, just the overload of messages and emails and meetings and calls and voicemails and things like that. And sometimes in our workspace, we feel to protect our jobs, we can't say no. And then we get trapped in this environment where we're stuck in a loop of workaholism. These are all things that can accumulate for our respective stress levels. Personal stressors for sure, family and in-laws, spouse and partner and kids, conflicts between any of those folks, bills. How about bills that show up that you don't expect? I just paid $3,300 for a new air conditioning compressor. I live in the Ozarks. We need those here. It's hot as all get out here in about another week or so. Illness and pain. Especially if you have chronic pain, chronic illness, things you've been dealing with or people in your lives are dealing with. Think about the toxic friendships you have. Could be relatives, could be people that have been around your life, where when they call on your phone and you see their number, you go, I don't want to talk to that person. Well, some people in my book need to get fired, even if they are family members. You go, this person has always been mean to me or is not nice to me. I'm not letting them in my life anymore. And think about how freeing that can be. Unmanaged stress, unmanaged anger can oftentimes lead to depression. The worst case scenario for depression is significant health issues and even suicidality. We look at people with seemingly good lives in their 50s and 60s who commit suicide, and we're stunned by this news. But we look at the accumulation of unmanaged stress in their lives, illness, pain, relationship difficulties, financial difficulties that many people have had, especially during the pandemic. It is a significant issue that we're trying to pay attention to as we come out of the pandemic. We'll talk about some solutions for these things as we go forward. I'm a big believer in EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Employee Assistance Program is usually for most organizations a extra employee benefit. It is not connected to the organization as somebody who's sitting as a psychologist in an office waiting to talk to you that's 2 doors down the hall, but it's an 800 number service, or it's a referral service, a retainer service that many organizations have. I'm a big believer in their work. I refer people to EAP all the time in my coaching work, especially when they have off the job or personal issues which are outside of my scope of what I do coaching for. When you look at EAP, look at all the things that are covered here and all the things that they may be possible: pet loss, gambling, financial, medical, legal, blended families, stepchildren, sick parents, Alzheimer's, cancer. All these things are covered by EAP. I'm a big believer in their services, but I have a hard time many times in my discussions with people to get them to go because they think there's a number of reasons why EAP is not for them. And so we'll talk about some of the things here. Why don't employees use an employee assistance program? It's usually 3 to 5 sessions for free. Oftentimes there's a stigma about reaching out for help, especially with men. I spend a lot of time talking to tough guys and tough women, firefighters, cops, people in public works departments, things like that don't want to admit to themselves that they need help, and they'll wait until the water is up over their head before they start to struggle for help. The fear of peers or bosses or even family members finding out. They have concerns about confidentiality. I have a degree in psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but I went to grad school with all these folks that do this kind of work, and they are confidential. You could hang them up by their thumbs for 2 weeks. They wouldn't tell you their own first name. There is no report. There is no follow-on. People are not briefed about what treatment or discussions you had. It is confidential, except if you say, I want to harm myself or somebody else, in which case they have to break confidentiality for that. There's some concerns that employees have about being put on the rubber gun squad. If I tell my employer I'm in a counseling thing, they'll take me off of work. They'll put me on the desk. They'll take me out of the field. They'll put me, I have a job as a truck driver. They'll make me sit at a desk. These are not concerns that you should think about for EAP, because it is a confidential treating environment. They don't know about the resource, or they don't know how to access it. You don't need to ask permission. You can usually go through your human resources website, your intranet, and get the referral telephone number for them. If that's not obvious to you, make a discreet inquiry to somebody in HR and ask for that resource and call. And when you go to the first appointment, you typically go to all of them. And that's my biggest leverage point, is to try to get people to go to that first one. And what they tell me later on is it was a huge help, a huge relief for the personal and professional stressors that I was facing at the time. EAP, Employee Assistance Program. If you don't want to use your EAP, you have your a clinical referral from your medical doctor, your personal care physician, your primary care physician. You have a health plan that typically has a mental health benefit. You can get a referral from a trusted friend or somebody that you care about that's been in a counseling situation. You could use their counselor. Those of you who are involved in your church may get pastoral counseling. These days we can do online therapy versus via Skype and Zoom and GoToWebinar and things like that. Very useful. And a lot of clinicians, as long as they're staying within state lines, can do their counseling that way. And there's also support groups. Parents without partners and people that have lost children and cancer support groups. All these things are very valuable for folks, and you can find out about them online. So here is my cure, quote unquote, for stress: breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep, or what we call BREADS. Breathing slow and deep throughout the days. You can slow down your breathing, slow down your energy around breathing. Get out of that fight or flight modality where you're breathing too quickly. You're functioning too fast. Slow down your breathing. You're on the telephone with a difficult client. You're on the phone with a family member who's having a crisis. You're talking to your boss or a coworker and it's not going well. Try to slow down your breathing. Keep your head in the game. Okay, the more you breathe slow and deep, the more it oxygenates your brain, oxygenates your thinking processes. It gets you out of that fight or flight modality where the blood leaves your brain and goes into your arms and legs. Second point, relaxation. If you can find a way to reboot the mechanism, which is your brain, 10 minutes once a day. 10 minutes twice a day would be awesome and ideal if you can find a safe, quiet place to do that. Your desk, your office, your workstation, sitting in your car, sitting in your truck, in a safe place where you can close your eyes and just focus on one thing, your breathing. Count your breaths. Focus on some peaceful, relaxing music, or go to YouTube and get some, or go to Spotify or SoundCloud and get some relaxing mindfulness meditation music, or even better, guided meditation discussions. There's a guy named Joseph Goldstein, who's very well known. Also a woman named Sharon Salzberg, S-A-L-Z-B-E-R-G. Sharon Salzberg's stuff is really well known as well. And I'll give you a couple of apps which are starting off, they're paid apps, but they start off as free apps for you can take a look at. Exercise, 30 minutes a day, 3 to 5 days a week. Walking tends to be the best. They always say if you have a fat dog, you need more exercise, right? I've got 7 dogs, so I get a fair amount of exercise with those beasts. Look how exercise is connected to good sleep, and exercise is connected to eating better, and sleep is connected to breathing, and sleep is connected to attitude. All these things in the breads piece here are interconnected. Attitude, relentlessly positive. Again, 1 foot in the present, 1 foot in the future. For me, relentlessly positive says, I will find out a solution. I will figure this out. I know what I'm supposed to do, or if I don't, I'm going to discover it along the way. I really tried to change my modality away from this sucks, this is stupid, this isn't going to work, I'm not going to do this well. I really tried to put that behind me and focus on a relentlessly positive modality. So diet, you know that food is fuel, and that your blood sugar is a big issue to manage, that your protein levels are a big issue to manage, and that your alcohol levels are something important to manage as well. So what you eat changes your mood. You can eat foods that make you feel better and then make you feel worse at the end. Alcohol would be a perfect example there. You can eat foods that are typically healthy, that are good for you throughout the day, rather than just things that you like to eat, as opposed to things that are a little bit more healthy for you. You don't have to eat kale all the time, but throw it in a salad once in a while. Last one, sleep. We are a sleep-deprived culture. The reason we know that is whenever we put people in situations where they shouldn't fall asleep, they do. Movies, meetings, church. We look at sleep on the airplane, people pass out as soon as the wheels are up off the ground. We are a sleep-deprived culture. Most of us adults need 8 hours. Kids need more. Older adults may need even more than 8 hours, but typically 7 to 8 is the sweet spot. Some people are getting by on 5 and 6 all the time, and it really hurts them in terms of their cognitive ability. It makes them more grouchy, and it has definite connection, relationship to your nervous system, your hormonal system. It has lots of connections to how you feel during the day. And if you're sleep deprived and grouchy and aren't thinking clear, you've got to get more sleep. Start again by trying to make the sleep play, your bedroom as sleep comforting as possible. It's cool, it's very dark. Cover up all the little blinking lights and the dots and things that go off. Don't look at your phone an hour before you go to sleep, the stuff that you've heard before. Keep the bedroom for not arguing with your spouse or partner or your kids. Use it as a safe place to be. Develop some pre-sleep rituals like showering and reading and things like that, that you can calm yourself into a modality where you can fall asleep within about 20 minutes of when you put your head on the pillow and close your eyes. Makes a huge difference if you can get an extra hour every day. Focus on that as a big part of the learning lesson for you for stress management. It's one of those things that we take for granted, but we really, really need better sleep. So a lot of the mindfulness meditation, a lot of it came from a guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn was one of the founders of a pain management, cancer management group at Massachusetts General Hospital. They created a mindfulness breathing program, I think 8 weeks, which they put terminally ill patients through and very sick patients through. And what they discovered was, breathing is the window to better mental health and better physical health. And whether we call it yoga breathing or meditation breathing or self-hypnosis or guided imagery or focused relaxation, it's all kind of the same. One of the things that Brian Allman taught me in some of his lectures and the work that he's done is that when we have a breath, there is actually 2 parts to it. You think, well, inhale, exhale, right? No, it's inhale, there's a little pause, a little transition, and then you exhale. And at the bottom of that exhale, there's a little pause, a little transition. It's a short span of time, no doubt, to the next inhale. So there's an inhale, a little pause, a transition to the exhale. At the end of the exhale, a little pause, a little transition to the inhale. What Brian Allman said and what I try to do when I'm using focused relaxation, when I'm using breath-based mindfulness, is just focus on the pauses. Just count the pauses or focus on the pauses. Here's a little pause to the next breath. You don't have to change your breath or speed it up or slow it down. You're not trying to breathe through your eyeballs or anything like that. You just want to get yourself into a breathing state, normal, easy, relaxed. Focus on the pauses or count your breaths. So 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes would be great. 10 minutes twice a day would be awesome. 5 minutes would be really cool. If you can just start off in a place that's safe and comfortable and able to do that. Focus on your breathing. I was at a program once that was taught by, it was for a group of executives and senior administrative professionals, and it was probably 50 or 60 people in the room. And the instructor was a yoga teacher, and she said, we'd like just to start with focusing on your breathing for just 1 minute. Everybody close your eyes, and for 1 minute, all we're going to do is focus on our breathing. And about 45 seconds into it, I've got my eyes closed, and I'm not looking around. We hear the group hears somebody's crying. At the end of the 1 minute, we open our eyes, and there's a woman in the corner, and she's crying. And the instructor says, "Are you okay?" And she says, "Nobody ever told me I could take time for myself. This is the first time somebody ever said you could do something just for you." And I was touching. I was really, really saddened by that sense that this woman could not put her own needs, her own health, her own mental health before everybody else, whether it was her work or family, who knows. But there is a sense sometimes that we don't give ourselves time to just sit. What the Buddhists call the monkey mind is the chatter that we hear all the time during the day. Emails, voicemails, bosses, coworkers, vendors, kids, spouse, partner, money, bills, everything. That's all part of the monkey mind, the chatter that we hear. It is not possible in the relaxation state to stop having thoughts. It is not possible to not think of anything. What the meditation process or the relaxed breathing or the focused breathing process teaches you is to minimize the impact of all that monkey mind chatter, that there's less of it. And every time you do it, there's maybe a tad less than the time before. Benefits of mindfulness breathing and meditation-based breathing: blood pressure, pulse rate, metabolism. We improve our oxygen use, improve our CO2, what we blow out, boost our immune system. We stimulate the anti-aging functions in our body, and we can fight off disease. It's not a cancer cure, no question, but we can help in terms of how our body prepares itself to fight off whatever is coming in, either from inside or the outside world. So we talked about exercise. You don't have to run the marathon. I did that in 1998. It was the worst 5 hours of my life. Oprah ran faster than I did, and I was in really good shape. When I look at exercise, it's cathartic. It helps my breathing. It makes me want to eat more carefully. It helps me sleep, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I had a hip replacement, so all I can basically do anymore is walk on the treadmill. I can go to the gym and lift weights, but in terms of pounding on the pavement and the running and all the stuff I used to do, not possible anymore. So for me, I use the treadmill. I listen to my podcasts. I kill two birds with one stone. It's great. Think about what you can do that you like to do. Don't do exercise that you're not going to do that you don't like to do. If you're not into bicycle riding and you like swimming, go swimming. I see people all the time at the gym with these, muscle people trying to get them to do exercises and they're never going to do. And say, if I was running the gym, I'd say, what do you like to do? I like to walk. Great. Let's set up a walking program that you can do yourself. I don't need to be here with you. And I don't need you to learn how to do these complicated kettlebell exercises that you're not going to do after we quit here. I mean, I've been going to the gym since I'm 13 years old. There's lots of stuff I don't like to do as exercise, and I don't do it. I like to do those things that feel good for me and holistic, but that don't seem like torture. It's not agony, right? So find those things that you like to do as part of the breathing, relaxation. The E is for exercise. And then attitude, again, relentlessly positive. Look at that second piece here. I'm not asking you to shave your head and move to Tibet, but when we think about the Zen moments, the Zen masters have always said, find what is good in a particular moment that you're in. You're sitting in the car, you're in traffic. Okay, what's good about that moment? You're driving home from work. Okay, you had a full work day, you're driving home to see your family or your pets or your favorite TV program or your favorite dinner, or you're going to do an exercise on the treadmill, whatever it happens to be. Find what's good in that particular moment. Lots of moments in life are horrible, and sometimes we have to search really, really hard to find the good part of everything. Your saintly grandmother passes away from disease. She's no longer in pain. She lived a full life. You got to spend time with her. What is the good about those moments? You're washing the dishes. You say, what's good about this? Well, the water's warm and soapy, and I like the bubbles, and pretty soon I'll be done, and I can go do something else. And the last one, stay away from negative self-talk. I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, I'll never amount to anything. The words you say to yourself, the words that you hear from other people, which are negative, can really influence your behavior and really influence your attitude. Don't listen to people that have not done where you want to do or have not gone where you want to go. Diet. Think of the things that perhaps we get in habits of eating, like bagel. One of those truck tire sized bagels may have 70 carbs. I was just looking at a little thing of rice that I usually crunch up and put in the microwave, and it steams up in 90 minutes. I eat that sometimes with some beef or chicken. That has 70 grams of carbs in it. Rice has a lot of carbs. So think of the things that you can do to say proteins early, carbs midday, go to bed a little bit hungry. Maybe if you can have 5 or 6 good meal days, then 1 or 2 cheat days, that's probably the best thing that we can do. And then in terms of moderate use of caffeine, alcohol, fats, sugars, all these things in excess can be bad for you. Caffeine really affects your sleep. Alcohol, there is no medicinal dose of alcohol. Lots of studies suggest that even a small amount of drinking does have brain injury potential, even 1 or 2 glasses of wine. Alcoholics Anonymous describes 5 drinks a day, 5 days a week as serious drinking and heavy drinking. Fats and sugars, again, looking at the diabetes and obesity issues in our country, moderate use of those things, again, the feel-good foods. Again, sleep. Program your sleep in 90-minute cycles. We tend to wake up at the end of a 90-minute cycle feeling mostly refreshed. If you wake up in the middle part of a 90-minute cycle, you can feel quite groggy. Think about the last time you only got maybe 4 hours of sleep. You woke up feeling okay. You could function. Sometimes you get 8 hours of sleep. You feel like grim death when you wake up. At the end of the 8 hours, you woke up in the middle of a 90-minute cycle. Think about when you have to get up and work backwards from that in 90-minute chunks and say, here's when I have to go to bed, or go forward. So I go to bed at 11, 12:30, 2, 3:30, 5, 6:30. If I get up at 6:30, it's at the end of a 90-minute cycle, much more likely that I'm going to feel more refreshed than if I woke up in the middle of one. Pre-sleep rituals. Okay, shower, quiet, reading, really, really dark room, maybe some white noise, fans, those little waterfall things, whatever you want it to be. Minimize your exposure to blue light. Cover up with electrical tape all the things that give off a blue light. Your tablet when it's recharging, your modem if it's in the room, your satellite TV things, all the stuff that I have too. Use the bedroom what it was designed for. Not fighting, not arguing, not talking about your serious relationship issues. Go in the kitchen for that. Careful with pills, especially things that can be addictive, Ambien, things like that have pretty serious side effects. And don't worry about occasional insomnia. We all go through that. But if it starts to be an issue where you get more anxious about it, you can also start to use your breathing and relaxation approaches and methods for when you use it to go to sleep. And there's lots of programs that you can set on your phone that will have a timer that will run out as you've gone through a relaxation process as you fall asleep. So think about the technology. There's lots of evidence that suggests that exposure to blue light from your phones right before you go to sleep makes it difficult for you to sleep, because it says to your body, blue light means wake up. I typically can't take a shower before I go to bed unless I've been working outside or I've had a full-on workout. I don't go to bed sweaty, but in my world, taking a shower says to my body, wake up and let's start the day. So I typically start in the morning with my shower, because that's what reminds me to let's get going for the day. But if a shower at the end of the day makes it better for you, that's great. But try not to expose yourself to your phones for at least 1 hour before you go to bed, and try to minimize as much blue light that's coming in, TVs, phones, tablets, laptops, stuff like that. These things can get us revved up. These things can get us thinking about work and relationships and work and things like that, which may not be necessary for you, especially when you're trying to go to sleep. Don't let the technology overwhelm you. And if you can, wean yourself off of taking your phone to bed with you. A couple of apps for breathing relaxation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, focused relaxation, breath-based programs are Headspace, and the second one is 10% Happier. Dan Harris, I know a little bit. He is a weekend correspondent for ABC News and Good Morning America. He also does Nightline. And Headspace is done by a guy named Andy Puddicombe. Andy is a Brit, came over from England after he had spent about 15 years as a monk in Tibet and the Himalayas, and really fascinating guy, beautiful speaking voice, where he guides a lot of the Headspace meditation programs. There's also, for you Netflix folks, there's a 2 Headspace programs on Netflix. Their documentaries. One is about, I think about 8 or so sessions of meditation. And the second one is a collection of sleep programs. 10% Happier with Dan Harris is based on a book that he wrote called 10% Happier. And what he said was, if I can calm the monkey mind that's in my head, and this is an NBC or ABC News correspondent, it's been all around the world. And if I can calm myself and I can use breath-based meditation for a little 10% benefit of my life, I'll be 10% happier. That's what the book came from. It was a huge bestseller. He has a sequel to that. So Harris has a 10% Happier app. He also has a 10% Happier podcast where he interviews a lot of people about the same subjects that he's talking about. So I recommend both. Both of these are paid apps, but they have a number of free introductory programs that can get you connected to the subject, and they're very worthwhile. Both of these are some of the most popular ones on the planet. Let's talk about anger. I do a lot of coaching work with employees that have anger issues towards each other, towards bosses, towards clients, taxpayers, things like that. And they really don't understand the impact of anger. It causes health consequences. It causes consequences to your financial life. You could get fired, your freedom, you could get arrested, your relationships, you could go to jail, or you could, somebody could walk out on your life who's tired of being yelled at. I don't use the phrase anger management. I think that's the wrong phrase. I use the phrase anger mastery. Management means that I've kept it at bay. Mastery means that I'm in control of it. And some of the things that I teach for anger mastery are a pause. Before you respond, when someone makes you angry, take at least 2 seconds, maybe 5 if you can, before you answer. That's like 1,000,000 years in brain processing time. Many people say or do the wrong thing, and they ruin their personal and professional relationships for the next 48 hours by blurting out stuff. This pause can save your career and your relationships. Start taking a pause before you act out. Breathe. Slow down your breathing. Get out of that fight or flight, short breath modality into deeper breath. Belly breathe. Get your breath long and deep and slow. Keep your head in the game. Don't say or do things that you're going to regret. Lower your voice. Screaming, shouting never helps. Try to focus on keeping your voice down. It models for yourself what kind of behavior you want to have. It also models to the other person that they don't have to yell as well. Agree to disagree. Stop your desire to be right. Think about the consequences of anger sooner. Lots of people who are on the unemployment line, lots of people are in divorce court, lots of people are in jail or prison said, I wish I would not have done what I did when I was so angry. Recognize your hot buttons, your weight, your hair, your clothing, your skin color, your sexual orientation, whatever other people can push that button for you and make you feel bad about yourself and who you are. Recognize those hot buttons, recognize those things that they come and try to attack you with, and disarm them and step away or leave that discussion before they can get to that level of bullying. Because sometimes people like to push your buttons just to get you angry, and that's not the type of folks you want to be around. Think about the tough situations in your life. The death of a family member, a serious illness or an accident or something that happened, somebody that you care about is in pain or trauma. The 3 T's are really what we do best with as a human collection of human beings. The passage of time can blur the intensity of the situation if we are talking with either therapists or colleagues or friends or people that we know and trust and like. I have 2 best friends. My oldest and dearest best friend is Major Garrett. He's the White House correspondent for CBS News. He and I have been friends since we were 8 years old. That's 50 years. My other really dear friend is a guy that I worked with on the PD. I talk to that guy almost every day about everything in my life, and he is that person that can be my sounding board. You need to find people in your life who you can trust to talk about tough stuff. And the last one is thought stopping. Thought stopping says, I will not allow myself to go down this rabbit hole of pain or stress or whatever happens to be. I will create in my mind a stop sign. Every time I want to talk about it or think about an uncomfortable subject, I'm going to stop when I see that stop sign. I can implant that in my head and use that as a mental barrier, an anchor piece that says, I will not continue to ruminate or talk about this tough stuff, only when I need to or only when I want to, not in those times where that's not appropriate for me to do it. Think about the passage of time. Think about talking with people that you care about, either in a therapeutic environment with a clinician or your colleagues or friends or relatives that you trust, and the thought-stopping concept. Workplaces are really thinking a lot about wellness now. We look at gym memberships and gyms at the facility. Google has sleeping pods, I think, which sounds kind of awesome. Nap rooms and yoga and meditation. We have health days where we put, blood pressure and cholesterol checks for all employees. Certainly job sharing and telecommuting and flex time has really been popular during the pandemic. Smoking cessation programs. If you know anybody that smokes and you want to help them quit, I just did a piece for psychologytoday.com, which ran last week on stopping smoking. So if you go to Psychology Today and you put in Steve Albrecht and smoking, it'll pop up. It's a decent program you can refer somebody to. Access to wellness programs through our medical benefits, sabbaticals, mental health days. Take your vacation days, take your mental health days, take your sick time. Don't be a warrior. If you look at those situations where you say, well, I worked here for 20 years, never took a sick day, then they won, didn't they? It's not what we want. No emails before or after dark. Try to set up a schedule where you're not tied to your machines all the time. Your family will appreciate it, so will your mental and physical health. So focused relaxation, 10 minutes, breathing, focusing on those turning points, those transition points, the inhale, a little pause, and then the transition, the turning point to the next breath, the exhale. Start at the head and go to your toes and relax your muscles. Talk about all the things from your neck muscles and your wrists and your shoulders and your back and your hips and your calves and your toes, right? And then start at your toes and go back up to the top of your head. Number 3 there, choose a private getaway place, someplace that you've been to that's lovely and great, someplace that you'd like to go to with somebody that you care about or by yourself. It's someplace that you know that exists in the real world or it doesn't, and you can go there in your head. For me, it's my grandparents' house in Maryland. That just reminds me that's my private getaway place. Choose a color that you associate with relaxation. Touch your thumb and finger together, or touch any of your fingers with your thumb, and just do that in a small way, especially during stressful times or meetings, that says, get under control, slow down your breathing. Choose a word that you associate with stress management. I use the word PAX, P-A-X. It's the Latin for peace, right? There's lots of words that you could choose, just a one-syllable word that you would connect to relaxation. Try to find 10 minutes once a day where that's what you do, and make it a part of your, not goals, but your systems for your life. Think of this as a private getaway place, right? Think of images that you can pull up on your phone that are part of your private getaway place. Think of colors that you can pull up on your phone. Think of fractals that you can look at on your phone that are part of this private getaway place. Or if you're like me, just get a whole boatload of dogs. So don't forget the acronym. You can download the slides. You can get those from Deb at the Aspen website. But the acronym, breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep is what we have been talking about. Those things together are all interrelated. They make a huge difference in stress management for you. Deb, back over to you.
Thank you, Steve. That was a great presentation. I'm always intrigued by the 90-minute sleep cycles. I've tried to incorporate that into my sleeping, and ever since I learned that from you. So thank you for that.
That makes a huge difference.
Go ahead.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. We will share a copy. We will share all of the information with this information on our website, and tell you how to get a copy of the recorded presentation. And thank you for attending today's webinar presented by Heffernan. We will send information by email with instructions on how to access a copy of the presentation on the website. And thank you, Dr. Steve Albrecht, for your time and expertise today.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, everybody at Heffernan and Aspen.
Thank you. We hope all of the attendees found today's webinar to be a valuable use of your time, and be sure to join us on July 20th for exempt and non-exempt employees. We'll be covering things like FMLA, overtime, travel time, leaves, etc. So thank you, everyone, and have a safe day.